Let's start with the big news that's in fact playing out in the small tiny islands of the Maldives, where no one saw it coming, not even the oppositional Maldivian Democratic Party. The Supreme Court of the Maldives has ordered for the release of 9 political prisoners. Former President Mohammad Nasheed, who is presently in self-imposed overseas exile, has been pronounced as a free man as well. The celebrations have erupted in Malé, the tiny capital of the beautiful island nation, because the judgment reinforces the country's first democratic election in 2008, which saw the widely popular Mr. Nasheed being sworn in as the president of the tiny country. Now, Mr. Nasheed was controversially charged with terrorism and also sentenced to a prison sentence of 13 years by the present President Abdullah Yameen in the year 2015. Now, Mr. Nasheed has tweeted his reaction to the court ruling. Mr. Nasheed has tweeted, and I quote, "Welcome tonight's Supreme Court ruling calling for the immediate release of political prisoners and the restoration of their civil and political rights. The President Yameen must abide by this ruling and resign. Urge all citizens to avoid confrontation and engage in peaceful political activity," unquote. So this is what the former President of Maldives, Mohammad Nasheed, has put out on Twitter. Now, Mr. Nasheed has reason to be cautious, for there may soon be trouble in paradise. Now, all-powerful President Yameen has sacked the Maldivian police chief Ahmed Arif for tweeting his support for the court order. The President Yameen's spokesperson has also questioned the legality of the judgment because the Attorney General was reported to be absent, and the Attorney General, who is in all likelihood an official handpicked by the President for the post, has said that the administration was currently, quote-unquote, wetting the verdict of the country's highest court. Now, it is important to note that the judgment effectively ends the controversial President Yameen's authoritarian rule since 2013. A brutal suppression of Maldivians demanding the implementation of the judgment cannot be ruled out, and sources close to the exiled leader have told WION that President Yameen may order the military to storm the court and detain its judges. All right, now to discuss these fast-paced developments that are taking place in the tiny island nation of Maldives, we're joined in by our senior international affairs editor, Padma Raf. Padma, what's playing out here? There was this Supreme Court order giving out the release essentially of these political prisoners, and now we see the aftermath is leading to a completely different direction.
Saleh, the Supreme Court order comes as a surprise even to the Maldivian Democratic Party, which is the opposition and which has actually just become the largest single party in the opposition, due to the release of 9 members who were arrested, who were originally of the ruling President Yameen's party, but who defected, and they were put in jail because of doing so. Now, their release and that of the former elected president of the Maldives, in fact, the first democratically elected president, Mohammad Nasheed, who is in exile, those releases mean essentially that the Maldivian Democratic Party is now the single largest party, and therewith this judgment is essentially, requires the current president, the current incumbent, to step down and restore the rights and drop the charges, which many say were trumped up, charges of treason against the former democratically elected president.
Absolutely, indeed. And looking at the visuals as to what is playing out, it appears to be a bit of a chaos that's presently playing out in Malé. Now, the police chief, we are given to understand, has been sacked, and the police are saying that they'll actually go ahead and implement this order that's been given out by the Supreme Court. Although the president there, Mr. Yameen, is not very keen on that.
Well, we must point out to viewers and caution them that the visuals that we just ran were of protests and demonstrations that were subdued rather brutally by President Yameen's administration last year. And these are scenes that have repeated themselves very often over the many years, in fact, since 2013, since President Yameen came to power and usurped practically all powers and, amended the constitution, and has also fiddled around, if you like, with the judiciary and judges, sacking them and putting them in place at free will. So this is a judgment which is, as I said, a surprise, because many were of the impression, and indeed correctly so, that most of the judges of the Supreme Court and all other courts were practically yes men, President Yameen's yes men. But obviously there is an independent streak to the judiciary in the Maldives. So we will have to see. Right now things are calm. The police chief was arrested because he tweeted the support of the police and said that the Maldives police will respect the judgment. And in retaliation to that, President Yamin, acted very predictably by having him sacked, actually, not arrested. And so things are calm right now, and President Nasheed has rightly also advised people on the streets in Malé to stay calm and to demonstrate peacefully and not to indulge in any violence. But one cannot expect the same going by what happened last year, the storming of Parliament by the police. Under the order and instructions of President Yamin, one cannot expect things to remain the same for very much longer.
Absolutely, indeed. And also, Padma, very quickly, Abdullah Yamin has been in power in Maldives since at least the 2013. Is there a likelihood that he could be ousted from power after this judgment?
Well, it will pretty much depend on whether he respects his own judiciary. This is the country's highest judicial instance, the Supreme Court. And it remains to be seen whether he and sections of the army and the police who support him, and see him as the sort of their rightful leader, whether they respect and accept the judgment. If they don't, then yes, we will certainly be seeing some violence in the days ahead.
Right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Padma Rao, for having joined us and brought us up to speed with what is playing out in the Maldives.